The year is 1826. Van Diemen's Land, a place of brutal beauty and even more brutal justice, simmered under a harsh sun. This isolated penal colony, far from the comforts of civilization, was a crucible of human suffering and desperation. Here, the line between survival and savagery often blurred. Whispers carried on the wind, tales of escapees, of bushrangers who roamed the untamed wilderness. But one name, spoken in hushed tones, evoked a deeper, more primal fear. It was the name of Thomas Jeffery, a man whose deeds would stain the very soil of the island. Jeffery arrived in Van Diemen's Land as a convict, transported for life. His past was a tapestry of petty crimes and escalating violence, a common enough story in this land of the damned. But within him festered a darkness that few could comprehend. The harsh discipline, the relentless toil, and the constant dehumanization of the penal system only served to sharpen his malevolence. He was a man stripped of hope, left with only a burning resentment and a chilling capacity for cruelty. His escape from bondage was not a bid for freedom, but a release of his inner demons. Jeffery did not seek to merely survive in the bush. He sought to dominate through terror. He quickly joined forces with other escapees, forming a gang that preyed upon the vulnerable settlers in isolated outposts. Their targets were often those least able to defend themselves. The gang's depredations began with robbery, but Jeffrey's involvement soon escalated to something far more sinister. His actions transcended mere criminality, delving into acts of gratuitous violence that shocked even the hardened inhabitants of the colony. He became a predator, stalking the fringes of society. The stories of his atrocities spread like wildfire, carried by terrified survivors and grim-faced constables. Jeffery was not content with theft. He inflicted suffering for its own sake. His victims often met ends of unimaginable brutality, their fates a stark warning to anyone who dared cross his path. One particularly gruesome account involved a settler and his wife, ambushed in their remote dwelling. The details were so horrific they were often omitted from official reports, deemed too disturbing for public consumption. Jeffrey's name became synonymous with pure, unadulterated evil. The authorities, already stretched thin by the constant threat of bushrangers, were galvanized by Jeffrey's escalating savagery. Governor Arthur himself declared Jeffery a menace of the highest order. A bounty was placed on his head, dead or alive, a desperate measure to quell the rising tide of fear. Tracking a bushranger in the dense, unforgiving Tasmanian wilderness was a perilous undertaking. The terrain was treacherous, the weather unpredictable, and the bush itself offered endless hiding places. Yet, the hunt for Jeffery became a grim obsession for the colonial police. Jeffrey's reign of terror, however, was destined to be short-lived. His own brutal nature proved to be his undoing. Even his fellow bushrangers, men hardened by their own crimes, found his extreme violence unsettling. They feared him as much as the settlers did. It was a fellow gang member, a man named Edward Brown, who ultimately decided to betray Jeffery. Brown, perhaps fearing for his own life or seeking the promised reward, saw an opportunity to escape Jeffrey's shadow. He made a pact with the authorities. Brown led a party of soldiers and constables deep into the bush, to a secluded hideout where Jeffery was believed to be resting. The air was thick with tension, the rustling leaves seeming to whisper of impending violence. The trap was set, waiting for its monstrous quarry. Jeffery was caught unawares, his guard lowered by the false sense of security among his dwindling gang. The ambush was swift and decisive. He was overpowered, his reign of terror brought to an abrupt and ignominious end. The wilderness, for a moment, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Jeffery was brought to Hobart, a spectacle of captured evil. The news of his apprehension spread rapidly, bringing a collective sigh of relief across the colony. His trial was a mere formality, a swift procession towards an inevitable conclusion. The evidence against him was overwhelming, his crimes too heinous to dispute. He was found guilty of multiple murders and acts of extreme violence. The justice of Van Diemen's Land was swift and uncompromising, a stark reflection of the times. Thomas Jeffery was sentenced to death by hanging. On May 4, 1826, he met his end on the gallows in Hobart. His execution was a public event, a grim warning to others who might contemplate such depravity. The crowd watched, a mixture of relief and morbid curiosity. His body was then subjected to the ultimate indignity. It was gibbeted, hung in chains at the scene of one of his most horrific crimes. This gruesome display served as a stark, decaying monument to his wickedness, a final, chilling deterrent. Today, the name Thomas Jeffery rarely surfaces in the annals of true crime. His story is overshadowed by more recent, more sensational cases. The passage of nearly 2 centuries has allowed the mists of time to obscure his monstrous deeds. Yet, his existence serves as a chilling reminder of the dark underbelly of early colonial Australia. He was a product of a brutal system, a man who embraced the savagery of his environment and amplified it. His story is a testament to the forgotten horrors that once stalked Van Diemen's Land. The echoes of his terror, though faint, still resonate for those who dare to listen. They speak of a time when the wilderness held not just natural dangers, but human monsters, whose shadows stretched long across a nascent nation. Thomas Jeffery remains a spectral figure, a chilling footnote in a history often too eager to forget its darkest chapters. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to support our channel. Your support helps us create more dark stories, true crime mysteries, and deep dives into the minds of history's most twisted figures.